Deep in the heart of India, where the air hung heavy with the intoxicating scent of wild jasmine, a fragrance so potent it seemed to weave itself into the very fabric of the jungle, the sun struggled to penetrate the dense canopy, its rays filtering through the thick foliage in dappled patterns, creating a mystical interplay of light and shadow. The year is 1895, a time when the world was still discovering the mysteries of nature. Ancient trees, their roots intertwined like gnarled fingers, reached for the heavens, their branches forming a cathedral of green. Waterfalls thundered into crystal-clear pools, their surfaces dancing with dragonflies, creating a symphony of sound and motion that echoed through the jungle. This was the realm of countless creatures, a symphony of roars, chirps, and rustling leaves, each sound a note in the grand orchestra of the wild. Yet within this untamed beauty lived a young boy named Mowgli, a child of the jungle. Abandoned as a baby, he had found an unusual family among the Seeonee wolf pack, who had taken him in and raised him as one of their own. Led by the wise and just Akela, the wolves had embraced Mowgli, teaching him the ways of the jungle and the laws that governed it. Mowgli grew strong, learning the ways of the jungle alongside his wolf siblings, mastering the skills needed to survive in this wild environment. He could move silently through the undergrowth, speak the language of the birds, and even wrestle with a playful bear cub twice his size, his agility and strength unmatched. Mowgli's life was a constant adventure, each day bringing new discoveries and challenges. He explored hidden caves adorned with ancient paintings, relics of a time long past, each telling a story of the jungle's rich history. He swung from lianas with the agility of a monkey, feeling the rush of wind against his face as he soared through the trees. He swam in cool rivers teeming with fish, the water refreshing against his skin, a welcome respite from the heat of the jungle. The jungle was his playground, its creatures his companions, each day a new chapter in his wild and wonderful life. But even in this paradise, danger lurked around every corner, a constant reminder of the jungle's untamed nature. The jungle was a place of both beauty and brutality, where survival was a daily struggle, and the line between life and death was often razor-thin. As Mowgli grew older, he became acutely aware of the delicate balance that governed life in the jungle, a balance that could be easily disrupted. He understood the unspoken laws that kept the peace between predator and prey, a fragile truce that ensured the survival of all. He learned to respect the power of the elements and the importance of living in harmony with nature, a lesson that would serve him well in the years to come. But a storm was brewing, a threat that would test Mowgli's courage and loyalty, forcing him to confront his place in this wild and wonderful world and to decide where he truly belonged. Every full moon, the animals of the jungle gathered for a truce. It was a sacred time, a moment of peace amidst the constant struggle for survival. They called it the Water Truce, a time when even the fiercest enemies would set aside their differences to drink from the shrinking water hole. This ritual was born out of necessity, a mutual understanding that water was life and life was precious. On this night, the air crackled with anticipation. The moon hung high, casting a silvery glow over the parched landscape, and the animals knew that tonight's gathering would be different. The dry season had been long and harsh, and tempers were frayed. The waterhole had shrunk to a mere puddle, and the tension among the animals was palpable. Mowgli sat beside Akela, the silver in the old wolf's muzzle gleaming in the moonlight. The boy's eyes were wide with curiosity and respect, for Akela was not just a leader, but a mentor and protector. He listened intently as Akela addressed the assembled animals, his voice deep and resonant. The old wolf spoke of unity, of the strength that came from standing together, especially in times of hardship. The law of the jungle was clear. The strength of the pack is the wolf, and the strength of the wolf is the pack. These words were a reminder of their interdependence, a call to remember that their survival depended on each other. These words were more than just a saying to Mowgli. They were the foundation of his upbringing, the guiding principle of his life. He had learned to hunt, to track, and to live by the laws of the jungle, all under the watchful eyes of his wolf family. Suddenly a hush fell over the gathering. The animals sensed a shift in the atmosphere, a foreboding presence that made their fur stand on end. A pair of blazing eyes pierced the darkness, and a low growl sent shivers down the spines of the assembled animals. The growl was unmistakable, a sound that struck fear into the hearts of all who heard it. Shere Khan, the fearsome Bengal tiger with a crippled leg and a heart full of bitterness, had arrived. His presence was a dark cloud over the truce, a reminder of the ever-present danger in the jungle. His presence was a violation of the truce, a challenge to Akela's authority. The animals watched in fear and uncertainty, knowing that Shere Khan's arrival could mean the end of their fragile peace. Shere Khan's voice, a guttural rasp, sliced through the silence. He mocked Akela's weakness, his voice dripping with disdain. His words were a poison meant to sow discord and fear. He mocked Akela's weakness, his voice dripping with disdain. He spoke of Mowgli with open contempt, calling him a man-cub, a creature that had no place in their world. He spoke of Mowgli with open contempt, calling him a man-cub, a creature that had no place in their world. His words were a direct challenge to the law of the jungle and the wolves who protected Mowgli. The tiger declared his intention to claim Mowgli as his prey once the truce was over, a direct challenge to the law of the jungle and the wolves who protected Mowgli. The tension was palpable, and the future of the jungle hung in the balance. Fear rippled through the assembled animals. The jungle, usually a place of harmony and balance, was now shrouded in an atmosphere of dread and uncertainty. Shere Khan's threat hung in the air, a palpable menace that sucked the warmth from the night. His eyes glowed with a fierce intensity, and his growl echoed through the trees, sending shivers down the spines of all who heard it. Mowgli felt a surge of anger, a primal instinct to defend his family and his home. The jungle had been his sanctuary, and he would not let it be torn apart by the tiger's tyranny. He met Shere Khan's gaze, his own eyes unwavering. The boy's heart pounded in his chest, but he stood his ground, determined to show the tiger that he was not afraid. He would not be an easy target, a helpless cub cowering in fear. Mowgli had learned the ways of the jungle, and he was ready to fight for his right to live among the animals he loved. Akela, old and battle-scarred, stood firm against Shere Khan's challenge. The leader of the wolf pack had seen many battles, and he knew that this one would be the most crucial of all. He knew the law of the jungle protected Mowgli, but he also knew that challenging Shere Khan meant certain death. The tiger was relentless, and his hatred for the man-cub was well known. A heavy silence descended upon the waterhole, the only sound the rustling of leaves and the pounding of hearts. The animals held their breath, waiting for the inevitable clash. The fate of the jungle, it seemed, hung in the balance. Every creature, from the smallest insect to the largest elephant, felt the weight of the impending conflict. As the moon climbed higher in the sky, casting long shadows across the clearing, the wolves held a council. Their voices were low and urgent, each wolf expressing their fears and hopes for the future. They knew that Shere Khan was a formidable enemy, a force of nature fueled by hatred and ambition. His strength and cunning made him a dangerous adversary, one that could not be underestimated. Some argued that Mowgli should be handed over to Shere Khan in order to protect the pack. The fear of the tiger's wrath was strong, and the thought of bloodshed terrified them. They feared the tiger's wrath and the bloodshed that would surely follow if they defied him. The safety of the pack was paramount, and many believed that sacrificing one to save many was the only option. Mowgli listened to the debate, his heart heavy with a mixture of anger and betrayal. He had always considered the wolves his family, and the thought of being handed over to Shere Khan was a bitter pill to swallow. He understood the danger he posed to his wolf family, the threat that Shere Khan represented. The tiger's hatred for him was a constant shadow, and he knew that his presence put everyone at risk. He knew he couldn't ask them to risk their lives for him. The love and loyalty he felt for his wolf family were strong, and he couldn't bear the thought of them suffering because of him. He had to make a choice that would shape his destiny and the fate of those he loved. With a heavy heart, Mowgli resolved to face Shere Khan alone, to protect his family and the jungle he called home. The weight of the decision pressed down on Mowgli. He had always known he was different, a man-cub raised by wolves. But Shere Khan's threat made it painfully clear that he didn't truly belong in the jungle. He couldn't bear the thought of the pack being torn apart because of him. With a heavy heart, Mowgli made his decision. He would leave the jungle, venture into the unknown world of men. It was a perilous choice, fraught with uncertainty, but he was determined to protect his family. He announced his decision to the pack, his voice trembling slightly despite his resolve. Bagheera, the sleek black panther who had always been Mowgli's protector and friend, stepped forward. He understood the boy's heart, his deep connection to the jungle and its creatures. He vowed to guide Mowgli to the man village to ensure his safe passage out of the jungle. Tears welled up in the eyes of Mother Wolf, Raksha, as she nuzzled Mowgli one last time. She had raised him as her own, and the thought of him leaving filled her with a deep sadness. But she knew it was for the best. As the first rays of dawn pierced through the canopy, Mowgli turned his back on the only home he had ever known and stepped out into the unknown, with Bagheera by his side. The jungle seemed to hold its breath as Mowgli and Bagheera slipped through the undergrowth. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and the calls of unseen creatures. Danger lurked around every corner, and Mowgli knew that Sher Khan would be relentless in his pursuit. Their journey was fraught with peril. They crossed treacherous ravines, navigated through dense thickets, and evaded the watchful eyes of predators. Bagheera, with his keen senses and knowledge of the jungle, proved to be an invaluable guide. He taught Mowgli to read the signs of the forest, to identify the calls of different animals, and to move silently through the undergrowth. One evening, as they rested beside a gurgling stream, Bagheera caught a whiff of danger on the wind. He warned Mowgli that Shere Khan was close, his tiger scent heavy in the air. They had to move quickly, to find a place of safety before they were discovered. As darkness descended, they stumbled upon a ruined temple, its stone walls overgrown with vines and creepers. It was not ideal, but it would have to do. Mowgli, exhausted from the day's journey, curled up at the base of a crumbling pillar, his senses on high alert. He knew that Shere Khan was closing in, the threat of the tiger ever present.